Hey book lovers, my name is Em and I want to talk about books. And cats. Hey book lovers, oh man, has it been a week and then some. It's been a rough one. I had some life stuff happen early in the week and I just never really got caught up. So all that is to say that I haven't really had a chance to properly go through a novel. So this is going to be kind of a short episode. At least I have been writing. I've been working on a play for my after-school theater kids to do in the fall. And I'm also, of course, working on my weekly writing project, Heart of the Storm. And I'm still loving the story, which is really surprising at this point. I think that the podcast has helped me keep it going. And I think limiting myself to a chapter or two a week has kind of kept it fresh for me. I've also definitely gotten myself out of a couple of dead ends that could have sent the story into the unfinished pile pretty quickly. I have to say it makes me a little uncomfortable to put it out without editing it, but I also think that it makes me more careful in the initial writing. Because normally I'm just kind of stream of conscious and I figure I'll edit it later, but I'm kind of editing in my brain as I write. It has definitely been an interesting process. I like to mess around with my writing process sometimes, especially when I'm feeling kind of stuck in a rut. And this has given me some really good insight into my writing and the things I could try to change. Another thing that I've been working on this week is an audiobook version of one of my short stories, the first of many, hopefully. And that's going to be available pretty soon. I'm super psyched about it, so stay tuned for more about that. I do have a book that I want to talk about this week. It is a short book of haikus and watercolors called Ever Forward. The poems are by Claire Thom, and the art is done by her dad, Colin Thom. So Claire Thom is a poet who was originally from Scotland, but now is living in the south of Spain. This is her first self-published book of poetry. It's all haikus, and the artwork is all watercolors, like I said, done by her dad. She actually messaged me on Instagram and sent me some reviews of her book, and it just looked interesting and not like something I would normally get. And I was excited to check it out. I always want to support the self-published author because I understand how hard it is, how nerve-wracking it is, and then how sad it can be when you put something out and nobody buys it. I've definitely had that happen before. Yeah, so I just want to support when I can. Another thing that caught my eye about this one is that all of the profits from the book are going to a guide dog charity in the UK. And she even sent me pics of one of her donations. I just thought it was such a good cause, and it's just another good thing about this book. So I was going to pick a favorite poem and picture, but it was really hard to choose just one. If you've been listening for any time at all, you know that I am terrible at picking one of anything. So my top 3 poems were Ever Forward, Caravan Club, and Milkmaids. The picture for Milkmaids made me happy because it was of cows, and we have a ton of cows here in Vermont. And they are just such sweet, lovely creatures. And the picture was cute. I think I could probably pick a favorite picture, but it'd be just barely. Swimming lessons was by far my favorite. I love the facial expression. You'll have to check out the book to see what I mean. But, you know, it all goes to support guide dogs, so you really can't go wrong. Plus, you're supporting someone's dream, which is never a bad thing. The other pictures that were in my top favorites were Waggle Dance, On the Verge, and Peter the Hermit. They're all pictures of creatures that you'd find in nature, and it's just wonderful. I would really love to have Claire on here sometime. I would love to talk about her writing process and how she came up with this idea, and I'd like to hear more about her dad's artwork. So Claire, if you're listening, send me another message. So this is a lovely book that I think is really meant to be enjoyed slowly. Well, I am a fan of the quick read, and this one could be a quick read if you so chose. I found that Ever Forward gave me a reason to just slow down and savor my reading time. It was nice to just kind of sit with the poem and look at the picture and just kind of absorb it all. It was very soothing. It would also be a really nice book to share with your young children or grandchildren. The poems kind of describe the creature, and then the picture is on the next page. So if you just kind of cover up the titles of some of them, you could almost make it like a guessing game. And there's just lots of beautiful paintings of animals. What kid doesn't love that? So definitely check out Ever Forward by Claire Thom. There is a link in the show description. And show her some love. There really is just so much to enjoy about this book. And now we're going to take a quick break. And then I will be back with some cat stuff and the newest chapter of Heart of the Storm. Hey, book lovers. Anybody else like to work out? It is definitely part of my daily wellness plan. I love to move and I love to feel strong. And I'm not talking about strong for a girl. I'm just strong. And that's why I am super psyched to be working with Just Strong Apparel. They have really cute and functional workout clothes, as well as comfy sweats for just lounging around the house. And they are all about women being strong. Just strong. You can check them out at juststrong.com, and you can use my code for 10% off. You can find the code and the link in the show notes. Join the movement and be just strong. Welcome back, book lovers. So, my cats have been up to their usual eat, sleep, occasionally play routine. Sassers has actually taken over the role of huntress. Strudel was a magnificent hunter, and we kind of wondered if we would have to start worrying about mice now that she's gone. We live in a farmhouse that is over 100 years old, so mice happen. We haven't had to deal with it since Stru joined the family, and apparently mice will still not be a problem. Sassers has caught, I think, at least 3 recently, as well as a lot of flies. She is fast and apparently super good at hunting. Who knew? So the huntress legacy continues. So this week, my quote of the week also kind of blends into the cat stuff. So I've been obsessively watching RuPaul's Drag Race lately. I am obsessed. I love drag. I think it is an amazing art form. Who knows if I've talked about it on here before. I might have. I've been in just Drag Race land for a couple weeks now. And on one of the episodes, I heard one of them say a quote that I had never heard before. And it made me laugh just because of the mental picture that it made. The quote was, "busier than a one-legged cat in a sandbox." Now, I actually laughed out loud when this was said. I have never heard it before. I'm not sure why I found it so funny. I think it was the mental image, but it stuck with me, and I actually looked up the origin. Turns out it's a Southern American saying. So some of you may have heard this before, but it was completely new to me. We do not have that saying in the North. And it was just funny. It made me think of a cat that my dad had. He was actually still alive when I was born. His name was Fred. He had 3 legs, not 1, luckily, because he got caught in a trap and then dragged the trap home and they had to amputate his leg. He was a tough, tough cat. He was super scrappy and a fighter. And even after he lost his leg, he still never lost a fight. At least he had 3 legs, though. The one-legged cat thing, I just picture like a cat on a pogo stick, basically. It's weird. Anyway, so up next is the newest chapter of my weekly writing project, Heart of the Storm. I have decided to stop putting the chapter at the very end of the episode, so you don't have to sit through the show music before you can listen to the newest chapter. Let me know what you think of this. You're not missing anything if you just skip the chapter and skip the end, but that way you don't have to sit through the music if you want to hear the chapter. I think it'll work out fine. Let me know what you think. And for now, this week is chapter 28 of Heart of the Storm. Enjoy. Thea moved amongst the still waiting bodies. The warehouse in the basement of the mansion was chilly. Intentionally so. It wasn't time for them to come to life. Not quite yet. Until then, the giant icebox basement kept them subdued. She touched one lightly and smiled. Manx had done a wonderful job. His work had grown more complex and confident as the years went on. He'd been busy while she'd been away, in more ways than one, but that was nothing new. Her husband was one of convenience, and nothing more. She patted the chilled, tattooed skin once more and moved to the door. She whistled, and the creature that had been Ke appeared at her side a moment later. He was drooling and licked his lips hungrily. Something about the warrior drones made him ravenous and wild. Thea wondered what would happen when they came to life. She moved slowly through the hidden passageways and darkened halls. The mansion was impossibly big and dreadfully empty. There had been a time, decades ago, when she had wanted something different. Maybe not entirely, but she had seen a life with Manx and Harper, surrounded by her dear sisters. Their children would all be friends. They would have their own fathers, of course. That was the dream, but even then she had suspected what the others were up to, and she knew who they would choose. All for eternal life, those evil witches. Her sisters were all obsessed with long life and youth. They had their own reasons, and Thea understood to a point. She did not, however, agree that she should be sacrificed. She had tried to hide the book, but Mina found it, and everything had been a disastrous mess ever since. The betrayal she felt was immeasurable. It sat silent and heavy in the pit of her stomach. It had been the source of suffering and pain in the other realm. She had existed in a constant state of agony. Time had no meaning in the other realm. She was the pain, and the pain was her. There was no difference, and her wretched existence stretched on into infinity. Then Kiki's replacement child had served his purpose and brought about Thea's return. That splendidly simple boy had truly believed he was helping. He believed Mina was the one he needed to watch. It had been a haphazard plan. She threw it together as soon as she caught a whiff of their plotting. So far, it was working out beautifully. The curses had not been quite as successful, but the river dwellers were gone, and that had been the most important part. Cutting the valley off from the rest of the world had been necessary for her return. The magic residue built up until the valley was a powder keg just waiting for the moment she was released. Now she was back, and on her way to completing her revenge. One by one they would fall. 2 were already gone, and Mina was nothing more than a shell. That left 2 more, and 1 was on their way to her right now. All she had to do was wait. Nume was zipping through the trees at an exhilarating pace. She had been carrying Gemma everywhere lately and couldn't move nearly as fast. It felt amazing to be free again. She wanted to fly forever, straight out of the valley and into the unknown. She would return, of course. Gemma waited for her, and she could not be far from her child. She hadn't wanted her in the beginning, and Lottie and Maz made sure she was cared for, until Manx got his hands on her. The tattoos on her daughter's skin made her angrier than she'd ever been before. She might not have wanted the girl, but she definitely didn't want her in the care of that monster, even if he was her father. Nume sank lower into the trees and slowed. The weight of her decisions dragged her down. She was filled with rage, at her stupid sisters and their vanity, and at her own stupidity in trusting them. She was young and thought they knew better. She believed then that age and wisdom were the same. She knew better now. Manx was her biggest regret. She had trusted Maz and Lottie most, and they had betrayed her. Giving birth had been another violation. Her body was ripped in 2 and would never be whole again. She lost herself that day, and the anger she felt centered solely on the ugly, screeching creature Lottie held out to her. Nume dropped lower and came to a stop. She didn't bother to put her feet down, and her body skimmed painfully along the forest floor. When she came to a stop, she pulled her knees into her chest and started to cry. Gemma watched her mother's painful landing and the shaking, huddled mass that remained. She leaned against the rough bark of the ancient pine tree and felt the sticky sap pull at her hair. She wished she could help the woman, but she was using all of her strength fighting her own skin. The tattoos had begun itching a few days after she crossed into the forest. Meeting Nume had accelerated it into a burning sensation that seemed to be pulling her away from the tree dwellers and deeper into the forest. One night she woke up in an unfamiliar part of the forest. The strange glowing trees were numerous and grew in a tight clump, a shimmering light in the blackness surrounding her. Strangely, she had felt repelled by their glow and instinctively took a step back. Her tattoos were on fire and glowed bright as if in response to the trees. Then she was grabbed from behind and lifted into the air. The treetops fell away and the glow from the trees became a spot on the expansive black landscape. Nume held her tightly, but Gemma's heart leapt into her throat. "I know you are afraid," Nume said coolly. She was not an emotional person, and being Gemma's mother did not change much. "Your father has done terrible damage to you. Already your skin burns with his betrayal. Already his wickedness pulls at you. I know you feel it." Gemma could not tear her eyes away from the pulsing glow beneath them. Far beneath them. She swallowed hard. Her skin was burning. The tattoos pulsed with pain. She could feel Nume's grip loosening. "Please don't," she whispered. "It's for the best," Nume replied softly. "Please trust me." "No," Gemma pleaded. But Nume released her. She plummeted through the air and crashed into the trees, right in the middle of the glowing trees. "Bullseye," Nume sighed, and she began to slowly circle down toward the trees. There was a sudden bright flash, and the forest went dark. Nume quickened her pace as best she could. It was a dark night. The sliver of moon was mostly hidden by a thick blanket of clouds. Without the glow of the trees, Nume could barely see. Gemma, meanwhile, was burning. Her mother had done this. She could see Nume above her, swirling through the air like a predatory bird. The strange glow from the trees was inside her. It entered her tattoos, which were open, burning wounds at this point. The gray-green mist slipped inside, and when her body hit the ground, everything went black. She had laid in the darkness, feeling the poison spreading through her body. The burning pain was extinguished, but the gelatinous cold that followed made her insides squirm. It moved through her veins, and she couldn't escape the feeling. It tormented her relentlessly, until Nume found her writhing in the dark. Now the itching had returned. Her skin was an uncomfortable coat that she wanted desperately to shed. The pull was back too, stronger than ever. She was fighting so hard to stay. She didn't even have the energy to hate her mother anymore. Nume had tried. She just didn't have the tools. She watched her mother rise slowly into the air. With a rush of wind that shook the trees around her, Nume took off with impressive speed. Gemma could see just how much she weighed her mother down. And just like that, her decision was made. Conceived in violence, born to hatred, and poisoned by those who forced her into life, Gemma had never really had a chance. Knowing her roots showed her that her only purpose was to cause pain. Now she was torn between continuing the exhausting daily battle with herself, or giving in and causing some chaos. It wasn't her fight, but she didn't have anything else, and she wasn't sure how much more she could fight. So she gave in and took a step toward the darkness. And that is the end of Chapter 28, book lovers. Thanks for sticking with me even when life gets hectic. I truly appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, keep reading.